Power on.
Earth, 2018. The alliance between governments and tech giants has led to the rise of the surveillance society, distraction technology, the attention wars, and the erosion of your mind. But one show stands against this insidious system. Hosted by the podcast champion, the man of tomorrow, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He and his co-hosts form the intellectual resistance. It's time for Sovryn Tech.
You're dressing all in black, from your front to your back, and all your evil ways, they seem to go on for days, and as a matter of fact, you got one more. Smash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup, before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain. Alright. You've been knocking down these doors, you've been filling up this room. You run around the place like your name was Dr. Doom. You're a killer of culture, a vulture of style, and it won't be that long before you end up on trial. You're gonna smash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup, before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain.
Woo! The heat is on, the belt is on, because I am the podcast champion. This is Sovryn Tech, the golden stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, ready to bring it all on one more time. Well, we do it every week. What the hell am I talking about? But we are ready to get into all of the latest in tech, science, ethics, the whole thing, the bleeding edge of life. Because that's what we do here on this show, baby. Woo! All right, so we've got a lot to talk about. Pretty broad range of things to talk about in this episode as well. Something I do want to mention quick again that you've been hearing for a few weeks now. Do not forget that I know some of you are missing the intros and everything. Hey, episode 300 is coming. There's all kinds of wild stuff that could be happening, all right, very soon. I know you're missing some of those sexy intros where we cover the more, this is, Sovryn Tech is a nonfiction show, albeit I designed it to be very entertaining. And some of you find it entertaining, some of you do not. But regardless of that, this is a show meant to be very entertaining. And so in that spirit, often I do fictional aspects of Sovryn Tech. And of course, if you have never heard any of that, you just you can go to the main Sovryn Tech page. You can go to zog.email, which is actually my main page on the internet. You can sign up for the newsletter there, and you can get a listen of all the fictional aspects of Sovryn Tech there. And also, don't forget the book. And that's right. No, I'm not talking about that book. I am talking about the book, Sovryn Universe, Volume 1. If you want all that hotness, all that erotic sexiness that comes from the fictional aspects of Sovryn Tech, again, the fictional aspects, you want to jump on it. Link is in the show notes to get your hands on that. Volume 1 is out now. It's only $2.99. How can you go wrong? And I gotten great reviews from people. In fact, some of the reviews that I've gotten from people, I'm going to have to cover in the Relationship Rhombus show that I do with Stephanie. I do with the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, the boss. That's going to be just a really, really, interesting thing to break down. But of course, if you want to be on the Relationship Rhombus show, you've got to be on Patreon with Sovryn Tech. Just go to patreon.com/Sovryn Tech, SOVRYN Tech, patreon.com/Sovryn Tech. That'll get you your hookup. Of course, if you go to zog.email, you can find the link to the Patreon page there as well. But we do a relationship show where we field your questions and talk about other things. She and I do that together once a month, every single month, and we've been doing it for over a year now, I suppose. And it is really uncensored stuff. In fact, before we get into, I had this originally placed, we're going to get into the Foreplay, which is where we talk about all the little stories happening in the tech and science world. But before I get into those, I had this originally in the middle of it, but I guess since I already mentioned Patreon, why don't we just talk about it right now? I got an email a couple weeks ago from Patreon that my Patreon account /page/content it was flagged. Now, here's the thing, okay? It was flagged as adult content. I know there's, from longtime listeners of Sovryn Tech, there's collective laughter being had right now because what the fuck took them so long? Everything I do is adult content, no matter where I post it. In fact, with Patreon, originally, now, just to be clear, all right, wait, before I go further, my stuff, none of my content got taken down. They didn't do anything. They just said, okay, we're flagging this as adult content within search. Now, here's the weird thing is that when I initially, and this is 2 years ago that I've been doing Patreon. When I initially started Patreon, very early days of Patreon, they had a setting that I checked that said, is there explicit content here? Yes. Is there sexual content? Yes. I always do that, even like on SoundCloud, which is where the Sovryn Tech Prime episodes, like the one you're listening to now, not the bonus episodes that you get on Patreon. On SoundCloud, you can label everything as explicit. Everywhere I go, everything I do, every platform that I ever end up on, I always check the box that says explicit or sexual content. Like I just, and I know that in a way can kind of hurt me because that means it doesn't show up often in public search or something like that. But I don't fucking care because this is who I am. My sexuality is such a major part of me as a human being, as a person. Of course I'm going to put it on fucking display. But anyway, I just thought it was weird. I mean, and I don't know. The only thing I can figure is because, I've been losing patrons lately. I don't know. I guess maybe the stuff is getting too extreme for you. Or I don't know, I made fun of this person or I did this. I don't know. I usually think I have a good case for when I talk shit about someone, but okay. So regardless of that, I think because after it was a Star Trek Forbidden Frontier story that I shared on Patreon, and I lost a couple patrons after that. And I get the sense that they probably reported me because I think in that Forbidden Frontier story, which normally comes in the Sovryn Tech newsletter, which you can also sign up for at zog.email. It'll be like the last part of the newsletter. That way I'm not like shocking people out of nowhere with this really raunchy, and I don't think it's raunchy yet. Well, I don't think raunchy is a bad term, but with this really graphic sexual content, I don't, hit you right out of the park with that. Yeah, anyway, that's usually in the Sovryn Tech newsletter, but I posted on Patreon as well. And I think somebody, and in fact, I posted on Patreon ahead of time of the release of the August newsletter, which if you missed that, make sure you're checking your spam folders for it. But regardless, I think somebody, like there was a degree of like, I don't know, there was some what they call body growth or expansion that goes on in that, and maybe somebody got offended. I mean, I don't know, like previous stories had veritable tentacle porn in them. I can't picture how this is that much worse, but I think I got reported, and whatever. Like I've been dealing with this. I get reported. I've had my social media accounts get reported. I've had stuff get reported on SoundCloud over the years. I mean, I get reported all the time. I get reported to my affiliates that air Sovryn Tech, and they don't give a rat's fucking ass because, again, all my affiliates, they reach out to me because they're like, holy shit, I love your show. I am such a fan. Will you please be on our network? Yes, of course I will. I don't care what it is. But they don't care either. That's the point, is that like they know who I am, and they've been around. And so, yeah, I'm guessing that's pretty much what happened, is that I just got flagged because somebody reported it and said that this is like improper or something. And, kiss my ass. Like, really. I've been I kind of said this last week at the beginning of the episode. I've been dealing with this for 7 years, with people saying, oh, I can't believe he said that. Oh, I can't believe he's putting that out there. What, sex is good? Oh, no. All these different things. I mean, deal with it, folks. You can't shut this down. Sovryn Tech is as decentralized as they come. Good luck. And I always have a backup plan for making sure that the show can get out there. And believe me, you think they're not already in place? Ooh, try me. Anyway, so enough of that. But I just thought it was interesting that happened. But here's the thing, because there have been stories recently in the past month about how certain adult accounts on Patreon were getting shut down. I mean, this was happening, but I don't know why. Like, is Patreon now just flagging them as adult, and they're freaking out because it's not showing up in search because like their content won't show up in the Patreon search or what? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with these people, but there's plenty of like, there's accounts out there that have nudity and all this. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get the deal. I understand why there's like flags for adult content and all that, but bottom line being is that you can have pretty extreme shit or graphic or whatever. I don't know that I'd call myself extreme. That's kind of a relative term, but regardless, you can have that, and Patreon doesn't have to take your account down. They'll just flag you, and they'll label it as an adult account, and then it goes on. So, not that I'm defending necessarily Patreon. They have done some things I disagree with at points, but then they've also done other things where I completely agree with them. But regardless of that, just so you know, that's what's going on. But you can always find the link directly to the Patreon or any updates, of course, at my main website, which is zog.email. And it's a good idea. I don't know if I talked about this. I wanted to mention this recently. It's a good idea to actually follow, even if you're not a Sovryn Tech patron. If you are on Patreon, you could just follow accounts. I do public posts that give you updates about what's going on with the show. So even if you don't want to financially support the show, it's still not a bad idea to follow and get email notifications from Patreon of what's happening with Sovryn Tech, because you can do that. I do that with some other shows where I don't really financially support them, or at least not using Patreon, but I know that they put out posts through Patreon, and so it's a great way to keep track of them. So anyway, all right, we've been talking enough about that horseshit for a while. So let's get into our main stories here. I'm going to open this baby up with something, actually a bit of a disappointment. So BitTorrent. I've been a fan of BitTorrent, Bramco, and all that, for some time. And BitTorrent Inc., has been going through the process really over the past decade of effectively trying to become, for lack of a better term, legit. I don't like that word, but they've been trying to be legit, where they're putting out, they're not pirating, putting out pirate software or, pirated content, quote unquote. And they've been trying to put out like official content and start like a network and all this stuff. Well, recently, and this was news to me, but BitTorrent Inc., not the technology itself, but BitTorrent Inc., the company, that makes uTorrent and so on. They got bought out by Tron, by the cryptocurrency Tron, which I think is a very interesting move, especially since, and when I think we talked about this on Sovryn Tech, the guy that or one of the lead developers and the guy in pretty much the CEO of BitTorrent Inc., Bram Cohen, he came out and said that he was going to work on the Better Bitcoin. I don't know if he's still working on that or not. That's something that I can look into a bit more. Maybe we'll talk about in the future This Week in Blockchain segment of the show. But that's interesting that got bought out. But now also they came out with what they call uTorrent Web, which has been in beta for a few months anyway. And I got to tell you, if you can't tell by the name, what uTorrent Web is using BitTorrent technology, uTorrent, through your web browser. Sounds like a great idea, right? Also, not unoriginal, or not original, I should say. It is unoriginal. It's not original because actually years ago, and we're talking like a decade ago, the Opera browser actually built in a BitTorrent client. And there's also, like for Chrome, there's extension was a JTorrent. There's extensions that you can add on where BitTorrent, you can download torrents directly from a web browser. And we've been talking about really over the past throughout 2018, just how the torrent community has really tanked. It's done a nosedive as far as quality and quantity of torrents in a very real way. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about torrents in a second here, as far as an alternative to this, but uTorrent Web, this is fucking pointless. I'm just going to say it outright. I like what some of the guys at Tron are doing, and I've liked over the years some of the stuff that BitTorrent was doing. Of course, there are more interesting ideas they've kind of let go by the wayside, like Project Maelstrom, where they're creating a decentralized DNS system using magnet links, which I thought was brilliant. But of course, the good ideas nobody actually wants, because the good ideas don't necessarily make money, right? Because it's just like a great utility for everybody to be able to use, and it sets so much free. Well, anyway, that's a huge conversation to get into. But regardless, uTorrent Web, this is horseshit. This is pure horseshit. Because, let me explain why. It's not really uTorrent in your web browser. You have to download an exe, okay? You have to download an exe. There is a file you have to download, which is already, I don't think it's even cross-platform. so I mean, this isn't necessarily something you can use on a Chromebook, even though, now Chromebooks can run Android and Linux applications. So you could run, I can't think of the great, that's terrible. What a fail. I'm trying to think of the Transmission. There it is. The really great torrent client for Linux. You can run Transmission on Chromebooks now, and you could even run tTorrent Plus or tTorrent Pro, whatever they're calling it now, because you can run Android apps, Linux and Android apps on Chromebooks now, on some Chromebooks anyway. And I mean, so you could run that, so it's not that big of a deal. But bottom line being is that you're still installing a very separate piece of software, and I don't think that it's an open source piece of software either, to allow uTorrent Web to work. Now, once you do get it up and going, okay, if you do install it, and I tested this out on a Windows 10 machine, when you install it, it will then, when you go to, it'll open up a specific page, okay, and it's a page with, it's not like your traditional URL that you're going to see. But anyway, it comes up with a search engine, okay? And the search engine, it's really, you're on this dark page that says uTorrent Web, dark themed page, I should say. And there's a search engine there. You type in, I don't know, say you want to type in Solo, a Star Wars story or something, right? You type that in, and all it does is it does a Google search of torrents. Literally a Google search, okay, of torrents. And it's not even uTorrent's search, or it's not using any kind of torrent site. Now, you could say that this is a good idea in a way because you never know when torrent sites have gone down, etc. Anyway, I'll explain why I don't think it's a good idea. So you will click on that, and then you find the link. It wants you to find the link, which for most people, this is not something that's going to make life easy for people, because most people don't know how to really look for a good quality torrent online. They have a hard enough time finding it on an actual torrent site like the Pirate Bay, which has been down for a while unless you're using the Tor version. They have a hard enough time finding that, let alone finding it through fucking Google. So that doesn't make any goddamn sense. And again, this is out of beta, it's not like they came, I mean, it would have been interesting maybe if they had their own search engine of some kind, but of course they didn't do that, probably because they felt that they would be liable for linking to those torrents, which is a real problem continually in the US, and certainly an even bigger problem in Russia if you're following the case against Yandex that's going on in Russia with the, Moscow city courts. But in any case, I get why they did it, but it's just more I understand why they went through Google using Google search, but it's just more of adding on to the pointlessness of this. You have to install separate software. It's not just done in your browser. Okay. Once you install the software, then it's done in your browser, but you have to install that separate software, which I think, again, defeats the purpose. Then you have to use Google, of all things, to fucking do this search. Okay. Now, when you get to the site, finally, let's say you find a great place that's playing Solo. All right. And you click on it, and then you find the magnet link. You click on the magnet link, okay, which most people don't even know how the fuck magnet links even work necessarily. And you could say, well, then why are they even torrenting? Well, look, this is the thing. This is being sold off and designed as a way for people to easily, access torrents. But the entire process of getting to the torrent is not easy. I mean, the person that knows how to handle magnet links and torrents and all that, this is worthless to them. They're going to use Qubit torrent, or they're going to use Transmission, or they already have they're great ways, or maybe they're rocking a Kodi box or something, I don't know who the hell this is for. This is just the dumbest product. So anyway, here's the nice part. Here's the part where they think that it makes it easier, is that while the movie, say Solo, a Star Wars story, while you're downloading it, okay, within your web browser using uWebTorrent or uTorrent Web, and it will do that, you can watch it as it downloads. Okay. Wow. So, I mean, not that that's a new technology either. There's been plenty of torrent clients that have been able to do that for the longest time. All right. But, okay, so it can do that, and it does it all within your web browser. But again, getting to all of that is, especially at first, just a major pain in the ass. And anyone that understands how the stuff actually works and would know how to actually look at a quality torrent file, okay, or a torrent magnet link in this case, probably already has this really badass little setup going on that they've been doing for 10 years on their PC. So what the fuck, who did you make this for? And and as far as I can tell, there's no plans to make this easier. I mean, what they need to do is BitTorrent needs to get rid of that install file. Okay, and I'm not saying I know how to do that. I mean, I don't know if they're going to, do some kind of JSON or, whatever they're going to do, but get rid of that install file for one. I mean, that just won't fucking work. They'd be better off making their own, fork a Chrome browser and create like a uTorrent web browser that has that shit built in. Like that, maybe that's the solution to go with. I mean, they're already trying to do that with Project Maelstrom, but they fucking dropped that off because that was based on a Chrome browser. But again, it didn't use, your standard HTTP calls, it didn't use your standard URLs. It used magnet links as the DNS system for it. And it was just a brilliant thing. Well, here you go. Put out your own browser again, for fuck's sake. That'd be so, I mean, if you're already going to have to install a separate piece of software, you might as well have people install your own fucking browser. Really. You might as well. Now you could say maybe that's something that's coming in the future. Well, tell me that, because otherwise all I see is a dumbass technology. And I hate to say that because I actually like the guys at BitTorrent. And I dig kind of what Tron is planning on. Like I like that stuff. I hate to say it, but this is just mean. This is pointless. I mean, is it a proof of concept? What are you doing with this? And to use Google search of all things, massive fail. Installing the software using Google search, not helping people with the process of what a quality torrent would even look like in the first place, is just a major, major mistake. This is, I put a link in the show notes. You can try it out. I think it's bullshit. Because if you're going to install a software, then install a fucking decent torrent client. Go get QBitTorrent or something like that and, and have a great time. And, everybody's installing VLC Media Player anyway. So I get it. I understand what they're trying to do, but I don't think... at the same time, I don't know what they're trying to do. Unless this is a proof of concept for something they're doing in the future, this is pointless. So, but speaking of, one of the issues, certainly, like I said, how they are using Google for this, Google search. One of the genuine problems out there, and one of the reasons why they probably use Google search instead of just like attaching it to Pirate Bay or something, besides the legal issues of that, is that a lot of torrent sites have been getting taken down, especially throughout 2018. I mean, we've had countless sites go down, and that's been a trend for the past 3 or 4 years. An interesting idea that has been put out there is if you go to various key servers, okay, like you have the MIT key server, right, for PGP keys, for open PGP keys, what is it, pgp.mit.edu. I think that's kind of the most popular one, like where I put my PGP keys, which PGP keys normally you use for encrypting emails, right? And you put them up on a key server, okay, so that way, that way people can search and they can find your PGP key and then they can send you an encrypted email. It's a great and wonderful thing. Well, now what people are doing is, and this is it's already really magnet links, okay, for torrents in the thousands, but people are actually storing on these key servers, including like MIT's key server. They're putting up PGP keys that the data within the PGP key is actually, I think the largest one is like 30 magnet links for torrents. Now, you could say, well, why do that? Isn't that really complex? This is kind of impractical, right? In a way, but at the same time, the beauty is that it's all, unless you hold the private key for the public key, the key that you're putting up to the public key that you're listing up on, onto one of these key servers like MIT's. Unless you have the private key, it's practically impossible to take those keys down. Like just by the way that they set up key servers. Okay, so this is real. This is almost an immutable record that people are able to do where they can upload links, magnet links, like the actual URLs for the magnet, or we'll say the URLs for the magnet link. I know that doesn't exactly make sense, but you get my point. The address, shall we say, for the magnet link. And then you can copy and paste that into your browser or into your, torrent client. And bammo, you've got a torrent file going down. And it's beautiful because no one's going to take down, like nobody's going to take down MIT's key server. You have no idea government and so on that relies upon those key servers. Like, it's just not going to fucking happen. Okay, so this is a brilliant little move, and it's becoming more and more popular for people to do that. Of course, how do you find something within it? Well, again, it's not like the most practical thing, but I do think that it's a very interesting way that you can, without sharing links on Twitter or on in other places, like full-on links that lead right to, say, I don't know, some kind of content that somebody finds objectionable or something. You could just share a link to a PGP key, and that PGP key within it, when you go to look at the public PGP key, it'll list off all these magnet links that could be effectively, valid forever. I mean, or for, well, what equates to forever in the computer world. I think this is a brilliant little move. I mean, the problem is like we were saying, and like we've been saying throughout 2018, the whole torrent community is kind of like the quality. It's not like there aren't people who aren't passionate about torrents. Of course there still are. Okay. The problem is that, like the quality of the torrents for what most people want them for, like say movies and whatever else, which I don't even necessarily care about that. And we're going to talk more about that later on during the wildcard segment of this episode. The quality of the torrent community has just nosedived. I mean, it's really, really nosedived. So these are interesting ideas, but I think they in a way they're too little, too late. Something else major has to happen within the torrent community in general, not with BitTorrent, the company, but with the torrent community in general. Because right now, most people are paying for Spotify and Netflix, and they're not even bothering with torrents even. And because of the ease and all that. So, and look, obviously, like uTorrent web is not even remotely easier than Netflix. I think they're trying to be, but no, you totally failed. I mean, Netflix, you can watch right through the browser. You don't have to install shit. That's the point. You shouldn't have to install a whole other piece of software because that's sketchy business in and of itself. As far as, using uTorrent and who knows what the hell BitTorrent wants to do. I mean, there could be tracking shit within that. Fuck it. I do want to mention quick though, if you do want to use uTorrent web during the install process, and this is just as fucking egregious. This is so annoying. During the install process, there's twice, I forget what the first piece of software is, but it's going to ask you to it's going to make it look like do you accept the terms of service? And the terms of service are actually for like this kind of this weird ad technology. And you want to hit decline. Make sure if you're installing this, I don't know why you would, just go get BitTorrent for fuck's sake. Okay. But if you really were wanting to try this out, you want to there's 2 times where it's going to ask you to accept something and you can hit decline on those because it's actually going to ask you to install more software, which is probably the reason that which might be the major reason that they want you to download an exe and install software on your computer in the first place is so that they can fucking, pay for all this bullshit with their little installing their, the software, this extra software that you're not asking for. WinZip, like that's pretty standard fare software. It's been around for a while, kind of meaningless now because of what Windows can do as far as handling zip files. But, 7-zip is totally free. And why the hell aren't you using that? But be careful. If you do decide to install this, be super fucking careful with it. But I think it's absolutely worthless. So, something else, honestly, that apparently that Google thinks is worthless. Of course, what does Google even think has worth? Because they shut down every fucking service they create pretty much. But they are shutting down Inbox, which was their experimental email platform, which was effectively Gmail, but like with a wrapper and a few new technologies. Now that's been around. It's been around 2-3 years, I think. And kind of the first thing it did was it had those like auto replies that it could do, where it would use quote unquote machine learning or quote unquote AI. I put those in quotes because what the fuck do those terms even mean? When people banty them about. Fortunately, machine learning has seemed to like fallen away as far as being a term that people are it seemed like for a year, every tech story was about machine learning and it's like, oh, fucking stop. But regardless of that, anyway, so it would put in where, since Google is already reading everything that happens in your emails, which should bother the fuck out of you. But of course, every email service that has any kind of spam filtering is actually reading your email, something you should pay attention to, but most people don't. But anyway, so with Inbox, since they're already scanning your email, they said, well, okay, let's see what the content of the email is. And then we can create an auto response for it. Like if it's, hey, can we have a meeting at such and such a time? Then Inbox would suggest at the bottom, it would give you some options of saying, yeah, sure, sounds good. Or it would have it say, no, let's try a different time. Like, and these were these auto, responses that you could just press the button and it would send that out. And there were some other features that they were putting into it. Okay. And there's I know a lot of people that completely relied upon Inbox, but over the past year or so, everything that Inbox had that I guess took off has been getting implemented into the Gmail app or into the new version of Gmail anyway. In fact, really, when the new version of Gmail came out earlier this year, that should have been a sign that Inbox was gonna be, going the way of the dodo. But again, this is, Google for a while was like, oh, everybody get on Inbox. Everybody get on Inbox. Everybody stop using Gmail, get to Inbox. And now here we are. They're canceling it. This is, it's an old song on Sovryn Tech, but I'm going to say it again. As much as you can help it, do not rely upon third-party services. And sure as fuck, don't ever count on a Google service for anything. Don't ever count on Google for anything, because they will take it away without thinking twice, and you have no say in the matter. Okay, and Inbox, gone. Am I surprised? No, because, if honestly, if Google said they were going to cancel Gmail tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked by that. But anyway, there's an interesting story to kind of build on top of that that we're going to get into for our well, I guess it won't be story of the week. It'll actually be during, will that be during Wildcard? No. This will be during HackSec when we'll get into that. We're going to talk a little bit more about what the hell's going on at Google. But regardless of that, Inbox going away. I hope you weren't using it. I imagine they made the process of switching to the new Gmail relatively simple. In fact, I know a lot of the new Gmail looks a lot like Inbox, which I guess is kind of the point. But regardless, away it goes. Just never count on this shit. Okay, so last bit here for the Foreplay. Jeff Bezos. Woo! We don't talk much about the Amazon World Domination Tour lately. Now that's every tech journalist, every tech news source out there, and even non-tech news sources are talking about how Amazon is eating the world and, taking over and everything. Of course, talk about another old song. I call it the Amazon World Domination Tour, and we've been talking about it for about 5 years on Sovryn Tech, well ahead of anyone else, that this is exactly what they were doing. In fact, I predicted down to very specific actions that they were going to take years in advance. And well, anyway, the last time we were talking about Amazon in any serious light I was saying that I think Jeff Bezos is, and you're going to have to listen back to the episodes to get my full theory, okay? But I think that Jeff Bezos is trying to he is going all in on the concept of a universal basic income, okay? He is trying to create what he thinks is kind of a pseudo post-scarcity society of a sort. Well, I think this announcement this week might actually be pushing more in that direction as well. Here it is. Well, this is actually from Bloomberg. Here's just the headline. Amazon's Bezos launches $2 billion fund to help the homeless. I totally feel like this is pure marketing on his part. Now, $2 billion, wow, that's a lot of money. He's worth like $186 billion or something like that. So you tell me, but $2 billion to help the homeless. He's going to give to certain charities and all this other stuff. I think that this is kind of, shall we say, warning shots of what he has in mind. Okay, of what kind of the future that he's trying to build. Because look, Amazon is fucking taking over everything. If you become, as we've talked about for years on this show, if you become not a monopoly, but a monopsony, okay, where you control distribution, you can kind of control how things go, how things are done, in the world in a very real way. Doesn't matter if you're the one that doesn't produce it all. If you're the one that gets it from A to B, you are quite the powerful. That's ridiculously powerful, obviously. Okay, so I think he's pushing for, and I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying that this is what I think he thinks is a good thing. I think he's pushing for some kind of pseudo post-scarcity UBI future. I've talked about this in recent episodes. And I think this is just him, starting to make the press to say, well, look, I did this. See, I care about people. I did this, blah, 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 when I don't think he gives a rat's fucking ass about people. Okay, I don't think any of the tech giants really give a shit about people. And like I said, during HackSec, we'll talk more about that, especially as it pertains to Google. Do not trust any of these companies with what they're doing. This is pure marketing. That's really what I think is going on here, particularly with this, there's probably a tax play, going on here too for Bezos, but this $2 billion fund to help the homeless, he's telling you where he's going, just like why he spent so much money to make the culture series of books into some kind of, into a TV show effectively on Amazon Prime Video. Because, I don't want to call it predictive programming because that term has some very weird connotations, but in a way these are signs of what he's looking to do. And I'm worried about it. So anyway, we'll be right back. We got an interesting little story that we're going to get into that doesn't have anything to do we were just talking about as far as in the Foreplay. We'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech.
Got an energy spike.
Hold on!
Launch.
Bombing the Narn back to the Stone Age wasn't enough for you?
Then we heard it. The sound of something terrible being born.
This is madness.
Station 3 to Commander Ivanova.
Centauri have launched a full-scale assault.
Time is coming on! It's our turn now!
2 million tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. A world where empires rise and fall, where dreams are born and die, where war and hatred are challenged by love and faith. In the third age of mankind, an age plagued by an evil empire that seeks to destroy humanity. It is our last, best hope for peace, for victory, for freedom. It is Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
Story of the week.
It is time for the story of the week, where we get one or two big stories and we break them down. And, tech, science, whatever. I do want to, probably a lot of people are wondering, wait a minute, Stallion, why aren't you talking about the big Apple event that happened, was that on the 12th, 13th, whatever? Why aren't you talking about the new iPhones? Okay, I'll talk about them. All right, well, let's break them down. There's the iPhone XS, there's the iPhone XS Max, and there's the iPhone XR. Okay, moving on. I mean, folks, who the fuck cares? There's nothing, really. Look, I'm not knocking iPhones, okay? In fact, I'm half tempted to get one at times. If I was, I'd still get the iPhone SE, okay? But, really, please, you tell me the life-altering where suddenly, holy shit, this technology is going to turn you into a millionaire. Everything has changed. Your life is the new blood. I mean, you're just nouveau riche. Here I go, because, man, I'm filled with this sense of happiness and peace because I got this year's new iPhone. Tell me about it. Or do you feel more secure? Are you like, oh, yeah, this runs Signal so much better than the iPhone X? Are you kidding me? I mean, yeah, it's a tech show and, everybody talks about whatever's Apple is doing and blah, blah, blah. But look, again, phones they've become commodities. They're boring. All right. Unless you're going to do something like we talked about, I think, on last week's episode, where you're going to have an entirely new operating system. Okay, was it KaiOS or whatever that used to be Firefox OS, or where you're building in, you're doing a new secure hardware infrastructure with them, like we were talking about in last week's. Okay, let's talk about that. But otherwise, what the fuck? Unless we're going to talk about exploits on these phones, I mean, really, who cares? Oh man, it's a 6.5-inch iPhone. Oh, be still my heart. I'm not knocking iPhones. They're great. They really are. I mean, they changed the game. They're well, not as much as the iPod did, but you get my point. But fuck, who gives it? Why would I spend 10 minutes talking about that? I've already spent 3. Oh, it's a waste. There, I gave you the names. You know about them. There's a new one this year. There'll be a new one next year in September. Have a good time. I mean, there's an importance on what phone to buy, sure, and you want to stick with bigger brands and everything. That's a subject we could get into, especially when it comes to Android, because, the lesser brands don't get security updates or they don't get updated to the latest version of Android, and there's genuine problems with that, right? There's that exploit that will that you could do nothing to patch it unless you're using Android 9. And there's just no way to patch it. You have to be using Android 9. I mean, there's things like that are, of course, worthwhile talking about as far as phones. But to talk about the new hardware, I mean, come on. There's really, I don't know. Did you have a hard on while watching the Apple event? I have a hard time believing it, but all right, let's get into something actually interesting. This is from space.com, and we got a bit of a science story here. We're going to talk a little space. I know people love it when I talk outer space. But let's see. Mysterious light flashes are coming from deep space, and AI, dun dun dun, just found more of them. AI, artificial intelligence, saving the world. Oh. Let's read on. Last year's mysterious outburst of deep space light flashes was even more frenzied than previously thought, a new study reports. On August 26, 2017, astronomers with the Breakthrough Listen project, a $100 million effort to hunt for signs of intelligent alien life, spotted 21 repeating light pulses called fast radio bursts, or FRBs, emanating from the dwarf galaxy FRB 121102 within the span of 1 hour. Some scientists think FRBs come from fast-rotating neutron stars, but their source has not been nailed down, and that explains Breakthrough Listen's interest. It's possible that the bursts are produced by intelligent extraterrestrials, perhaps to blast space-sailing craft through the cosmos at incredible speeds. Some folks have speculated. Breakthrough Listen's sister project, Breakthrough Starshot, Stallion Breaking In, which we've talked about many times, even recently on Sovryn Tech since its announcement, is developing a laser-based light sailing system that aims to launch tiny probes toward alien solar systems in the next 30 years. And FRB 121102, which lies about 3 billion light years from Earth, is particularly intriguing. It's the only known repeater source of FRBs, which otherwise tend to be one-offs. So Stallion, breaking in here for a second to kind of explain this. Okay, now when they're talking about those neutron stars, so a popular theory goes that where FRBs come from, and particularly the ones coming from what 1102, did I get it right? Yes, I did. FRB 121102. Okay, those are from that galaxy, that dwarf galaxy. So generally the theory goes those specifically, okay, are plasma dispersions. All right, now, I mean, these FRBs don't always come necessarily from the same kind of source, and that's what's making this sort of intriguing. Now, normally when it's a neutron star, like they're talking about what you call a magnetar. Okay, you may have never heard of that, but a magnetar is a neutron star coming out of, or around the event of a supernova, and it'll just have this crazy powerful magnetic field. Okay, and that magnetic field will blast out, effectively like gamma rays, or like bursts of gamma rays that will come out as FRBs and can look like some kind of signal. Now, FRBs are also similar, kind of the byproducts of pulsars, right? Now, pulsars, we know, okay, pulsars are, in fact, so consistent, but you can tell when it's a pulsar. That's the thing. Okay, this isn't a pulsar, like that's known. But pulsars are very consistent about this. In fact, centuries ago, as far as pulsars go, I mean, people used to think that pulsars were actually a sign of extraterrestrial life because they were so consistent in what they were doing. They pretty much scientists thought that pulsars were lighthouses, for the stars. They were lighthouses for some kind of like major galactic empire of some kind. All right. But of course, now we know that that's not the case. Pulsars are a completely natural formation that happens, or a natural product that happens within the universe. So anyway, that's what they're talking about with magnetars. The thing is that magnetars, again, they are a byproduct of, supernova situation where they shouldn't be like a repeater. It shouldn't be consistent, okay? And also, generally we're just talking about gamma rays with that as compared to plasma dispersion. So just to explain like why, isn't it just this? Haven't we already got this licked where FRBs come from? There's actually not a really great consensus on FRBs in general, depending upon the source. So, I mean, there's times where, it feels like it's very well known that it's magnetars, but then there's times where it could be other things. In this case, they're thinking maybe it's an extraterrestrial civilization. But let's read on a bit about this. So, okay, an FRB, it's the first repeater. In the new study, Breakthrough Listen team members based at the University of California, Berkeley SETI Research Center applied machine learning techniques to the August 2017 data set, which was acquired by the Green Bank Telescope in Western Virginia and was originally analyzed using traditional methods. The researchers, led by UC Berkeley doctoral student Jerry Zhang, trained an algorithm called a convolutional neural network to spot FRBs among the 400 terabytes of data. The strategy is similar to that employed by IT companies to optimize internet search results, Breakthrough Listen representatives said in a statement. Zhang and his colleagues dug up an additional 72 light flashes, bringing the total number of FRBs detected on that day from that single source, whatever it may be, to 90,000. 3, which that's also very Stanley breaking, and that's a significant number. That's part of what's making this really interesting. Quote, not all discoveries come from new observations, end quote. Breakthrough Initiative's Executive Director Pete Warden said in the statement. Quote, in this case, it was smart, original thinking applied to an existing data set. It has advanced our knowledge of one of the most tantalizing mysteries in astronomy, end quote. The mystery remains, of course. We still don't know what FRBs are, but the artificial intelligence approach employed in the new study could lead to a variety of advances down the road. Zhang said, quote, this work is only the beginning of using these powerful methods to find radio transients. We hope our success may inspire other serious endeavors in applying machine learning to radio astronomy, end quote. And they say that the new paper was accepted for publication in the Astrophysical Journal, which is very serious. So this isn't like some kooky interpretation of this shit. So bottom line, what they're saying is, and it's ironic that Breakthrough Listen would find these FRBs, because their claim is, okay, we don't know the source of them. We don't know why specifically that with FRB 121102 that it is a repeater. And again, it's not unique. I mean, you can only look at so much of the universe from our vantage point here on Earth. So there could be other repeaters out there. But it's interesting that it's Breakthrough Listen because, again, their sister company is Breakthrough Starshot, okay, which plans on using laser propulsion for these, Altoid can-sized probes that we were talking about maybe 2-3 weeks ago. To send those out there to do various exploration and send data back to us about it. So now the claim is from Breakthrough Listen is that potentially these FRBs are themselves laser pulses or a similar form of propulsion that Breakthrough Starshot plans on using for its own probes. And that's why they're saying this might be a sign of extraterrestrial life, because this could be a product of extraterrestrial space exploration, extraterrestrial, like space propulsion. That is going on here, because it's very similar, and you'd get similar results, or you could end up with similar results with a bit of tweaking to what Breakthrough Starshot is doing. Okay, so it is interesting. Now, what do I think it is? Well, unfortunately, way more often than not, because this is a real minority held position. I have to explain that, okay, I think that sapient alien life is an alien life with consciousness like humans have, okay? And I don't mean animal life. I mean like human life, okay? Sapient life is exceptionally rare in the universe. I think it's ridiculously rare, okay? That doesn't mean I think that it's not out there. I just mean that it's not like the Drake equation says where, it's got to be fucking everywhere. No. Animal life, maybe, but not sapient life. Not something that would pull off or would be sending out FRBs or would read as FRBs. That's some kind of space propulsion. Okay, but I'm not saying it's impossible. So is it possible that this is some kind of, that this is aliens? Sure. I think that that's possible. However, I do want to say that, like I mentioned with pulsars in the past, there's been many times where scientists have legitimately claimed that this astronomical event is, or how about, there's another one, right? The system that they were claiming was surrounded by a Dyson sphere. Now we know that that's not the case at all. It's probably just like an asteroid field. Okay. There's been many times where these kind of claims come out, and every time it ends up, no. There's actually a completely naturally produced reason for, why this is being received. So I think personally, it's downright irresponsible it's not irresponsible to theorize that it could be extraterrestrials. I think it is irresponsible to make stories. I think it is irresponsible to jump to that conclusion. Because look, why are they saying, this could be extraterrestrials? It's probably not. Just like pulsars weren't extraterrestrials, and the oddity around that system wasn't a Dyson sphere. Okay, it's probably not. But I get it. What gets you to click on things? What gets me to talk about a story on Sovryn Tech? Well, claiming that it's aliens. And the part that kind of annoys me about this is that now look, like I said, I don't think aliens have ever been to Earth. I don't think there's much of any aliens out there, in the entire universe. I really don't. Sapient ones, okay? You get people that will make fun of Giorgio Tsoukalos on Ancient Aliens. He's just claiming that it was on Earth. But then you got all these other people who, they have no problem making wild claims that they're fucking, they're 3 billion light years away, blah, blah. Giorgio's evidence for aliens stands far and above this whole concept that, it's FRBs. And I'm not defending them because I think Ancient Aliens does more harm than good as far as studying history. Okay, not to say that there aren't real mysteries in history, but I just think this is irresponsible to even play this up when we know, every time these kinds of claims come up, it gets proven no, it wasn't fucking aliens at all. Is it possible? Sure. Mention the possibility. Don't put it in the goddamn headline, because a lot of news sources were. I get really, really annoyed by this, but it is interesting. We'll be back with more. Hey, I want to tell you about a Sovryn Tech sponsor. Now, you may have known it as Zencash, but they have gone through a bit of a rebranding. And hey, I get it. The rebranding is Horizon. And again, not like Horizon, Horizon. So Horizen. And you can find their website, horizon.global. And I mean, they're still, the monetary, the cryptocurrency is still called Zencash and so on. But again, like we've always said, Zencash was originally an entire platform, and Horizon is putting that on the horizon, baby. So you want to check it out. Go to Horizon. Again, it's HORIZEN.global, Horizon.global, and I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Now, let's get back to the show. Woo!
This week in blockchain.
We'll get into the blockchain stuff in a second. I just want to say, I know a lot of people get actually pretty mad at me when I'm saying, why do you have to keep driving home that there aren't that many aliens or something? Because I'll tell you why. I'm gonna break it down for you here real fast. The Golden Stallion is going to tell you. It's going to simplify it. I think that if you think that there's Earth-like planets everywhere, there's life everywhere, everything will be fine. I think that gives a implicit excuse to humans to fuck this planet up because you think that there's another one that you can go to. There is the very real chance, mathematically, that we are alone in the universe as far as being sapient things. And that Earth, planets like Earth, the math for something like Earth to come into being and then for a conscious creature to exist on it is so astronomical, no pun intended. How dare you do anything to risk this planet? And I think that when you think that, there's extraterrestrials, we're going to get out there, we're going to be fine. But no, you don't know that. We got to take care of this little jewel. We really, really do. Okay, and we got to take care of each other because we might be a very rare instance in the universe. All the way around. So that's why I get annoyed by this constant hope. Oh, aliens are going to do it because you end up with people get savior complexes about these exoplanets and about aliens, and they really do. Go ahead, since you're already going to Google with uTorrent Web, why don't you go to Google and and start looking this stuff up? These people have the aliens are going to come down and save us, like it's the day the Earth stood still or something. Give me a fucking break. You got to rely on yourself, and as a social species, we rely on each other. But why don't we respect what we've got and be gracious for it instead of, look, I want to explore the stars, and I think that humans can, colonize much of the rest of the solar system. I don't think we're ever going to get beyond the solar system. Okay. We can do all of that, but, let's respect our home and let's respect each other. So anyway, all right, let's get into the blockchain stories this week. I said that last week, I had said that I would get into a breakdown about Ethereum. Well, the fortunate thing for me is that this past week, Ethereum has had a breakdown. And in so doing, a delicious article, not as delicious as those Bitcoins getting sold, or those Bitcoin getting sold at Wal-Mart for $1. Did you hear about that? It's true. They're selling chocolate Bitcoin. They're not really selling Bitcoin as in the digital currency. They're selling, instead of usually you have those coins that are in a gold wrapper and there's chocolate inside, right? They're doing ones that have the Bitcoin symbol on it. I think that's fantastic. All right, Walmart, you let that ride. But anyway, a delicious story came out that I want to read, and it's from CoinGape, coingate.com. Link is in the show notes, of course, for episode 295. Holy shit, I can't believe it's episode 295. But here we go. Let's read about this. Or anyway, let's see. Ethereum nosedives to 16 months low Is it a fundamental weakness or price manipulation? Let's break this down. Stories from September 13th, 2018, very fresh. The second largest cryptocurrency by market cap and once a darling for ICOs, Ethereum is slowly losing its charm. It's been faced by a lot of technical issues, and suddenly projects which were part of it once have now become independent competitors. But this dive that has wiped Ethereum's price by almost 45% in a week looks pretty unnatural, and hence also raises concerns of price manipulation again. So Ethereum fundamental issues. Here we go. That's the subheader. Over the past 30 days, ETH is negative. It's down 45% versus both USD and Bitcoin, the fifth worst performance of the top 100 coins. Is one believing predictions of onchainfx.com, Ethereum has fallen from market cap rank number 2 to number 4, overtaken by Stellar and Ripple, only to recover back to a third position slightly after a midday jump today. Of course, that's on September 13th. The pain of Ethereum is getting deeper as its competitors, which once were hosted on Ethereum blockchains, have come up stronger. These projects earn points by criticizing Ethereum's poor scalability, extensive delays in transactions, high transaction costs, vulnerability to hacker attacks in the system of smart contracts, which is actually making Ethereum underperform. The other problem with Ethereum is that as the bear market persists, ICOs that raked in the funds last year are now beginning to open up their treasuries and are increasingly selling portions of the ether that they raised through token sales. Lastly, the founders' confidence in the project also seems to have shaken up this time. And this is the founder, they're talking about Vitalik Buterin, and they are referencing the 1000x, or what the story we talked about last week, where he claimed that there isn't going to be another 1000x like investment in cryptocurrencies ever again, that time is over, which I agreed with completely. Like I really think that that's a reality. But now the beautiful thing is that this article just listed off in much shorter frame than I ever could, because brevity is an issue of mine that I'm not good at brevity. But it broke it down of what are the problems. Scalability issues, okay? There are constant hacks against the smart contract system. I mean, you go down the list of the wallets, of the DAO, all of them. Like these are real problems that should not have been possible, but they were. And then, also extensive delays in transactions, which is going on right now. Now you could say, well, Bitcoin had delays in transactions and so on. Sure, but that's like one problem that Bitcoin has as to where Ethereum has 10. That we just listed off. The scalability is a real issue. And again, the speed thing, we just mentioned delay in transactions. The speed thing in general is a huge problem because really Ethereum was being labeled, poised, talked about as a way to, again, it's supposed to be the giant decentralized computer, right? So you were going to get rid of servers with Ethereum, and everything was effectively going to be done on the Ethereum blockchain. But then when you looked at the speed of doing some of the most simple processes within a corporate environment, okay, that you were trying to do, Ethereum was so ass slow that it'd be impractical, and you're not going to speed it up. That's the thing. This isn't just about Ethereum. There are things that blockchain should never do. It just shouldn't do it. All right. There are, depending upon scale, you're still going to want servers. I like the idea of a serverless future as well, but, we're talking about a major shift in mindset on how people think and how they interact with data and how they think about their personal data. Okay. Which that is sadly, as far as I can tell, almost 7 years I've been doing this show, is a really, really long way off. We're very, very far away from that. Okay. So companies are still going to end up using servers. Right? The corporate environments are still going to end up using servers. And Ethereum is never going to catch up to the speed that a server can do. So, that's a huge problem there. Because I did have somebody ask a question, isn't it, what are the problems with Ethereum? Haven't there been interesting proofs of concept that have come out of it? Sure, there have been interesting proofs of concept that have come out of it. For example, they mentioned Stellar. So I talked about Stellar way, way back when it first came out. That might have been 2 years ago. Yeah, I think that might have been 2 years ago, even 2 years ago in September. I don't recall the exact date, but I talked about Stellar at the time, and I knocked Stellar because Stellar was trying to get into the YouTube game, okay? And I've consistently told you just how impractical, it's never going to happen that you are, well, I shouldn't say it's never going to happen, but it's highly unlikely that video transmission okay, over blockchain is ever going to be a thing. Like literally over blockchain. It's just not going to happen. And I know there's other companies that are trying for it. And I think like trying to take on YouTube is just a marketing stunt because they have to know deep down that is just not possible. They don't understand how video codecs and how video works over the internet if they think that can be done on blockchain. Like the things that they would have to do to change it. You'd have to literally write an entirely new codec. You're not writing a blockchain technology. You'd have to write an entirely new video codec to pull it off. You people have no fucking idea what you're talking about. So Stellar was originally looking into doing that, and I knocked it for that. But I did say that a lot of other things that Stellar was doing, they were really trying to be an Ethereum competitor, starting off with, like I said, the marketing of going after video content. I think that Stellar, I'd said at the time 2 years ago that Stellar was going to be a jump-off point for Ethereum because the problem with Ethereum is the cracks were starting to show for other people, cracks that I saw well ahead of time, okay, but cracks that were starting to really show and that people could start to recognize, and that Stellar would be that jumping off point to where maybe like Stellar could scale better and could do some of these other things better as far as that goes. So anyway, but I mean, where are the problems? Yes, the problems are within scalability. The problems are within speed. The problems are high transaction costs. The problems are the smart contract system is inherently flawed, and I don't know how many more hacks we need for people to realize that. Again, yes, has it allowed for interesting proof of concepts? Sure. Okay, but then should something that allows for interesting proof of concepts, one or two maybe, that will end up getting forked off and used elsewhere, should that have the second highest market cap in the world? No. Should that be like held up as the darling of the cryptocurrency world, of the blockchain space? No. Should that cause this wild fervor of people that, are just so hot and bothered about it, their nipples are hard about Ethereum? Should that cause that kind of reaction when it's something that only allows for one or two interesting proofs of concept? No. That'd be like, that's effectively not the proof by analogy is proof, but the analogy is that, wow, we should really love and hold up we should hold up MySpace because, man, without MySpace, we wouldn't have any of this other social media. We should love MySpace and worship MySpace, bow down to it, and keep giving the investors money. No, that's ridiculous. MySpace sucked. Of course, all social media sucks, but you get my point. Okay, like MySpace is so. It proved some things. It was kind of a proof of concept. It had some interesting ideas that Facebook and Twitter and others would end up playing off of and so on. But that doesn't mean that we need to give a rat's fucking ass about MySpace, just like we shouldn't give a rat's ass about Ethereum, nor should it hold any real value because the problems are legion. And we just started listing them off. And that's not even getting into the whole thing which I have been talking about for a while, that once all these ERC20 coins, as soon as these companies want to start selling off, the price of Ethereum is going to tank, and that's exactly what fucking happened. We're in a 16-month low. Eventually, as I always say, the piper's got to get paid, and when the piper wants to get paid, there's no money there. Or for some people, it's going to end up being no money because maybe some people didn't dig into their war chests. What are you going to build on top of? Like the value of Ethereum was entirely held up by the speculation, when you could say, well, everything's speculation. Okay, you can make that claim. Good for you. I would argue Zcash is not speculation and it has value because it actually does something valuable, right? It encrypts and allows for, anonymous money transactions and so on. I'm not a member of Zcash Co. I'm not speaking for them. I'm saying that's what it can do. Okay. It actually does something valuable that people have real world use for, as to where Ethereum's real world uses are speculations in themselves. But it was all around the speculation of, oh yeah, we'll do a token sale and that's going to go to the moon and this is going to go to the moon, blah, blah, blah. And now you have the fucking founder of Ethereum saying, yeah, these kind of 1000X things aren't going to happen anymore. And he says that, and what, you're surprised that people start cashing out their war chests of all the token sales that they did, and then the value of Ethereum goes down, just like I fucking said, that as soon as people want to start cashing this shit out, it's going to tank? Where are the economists in libertarianism? You should have seen the problems with Ethereum. Freudian slip there. You should have seen the problems with Ethereum. Every economist should have said, oh, no, this doesn't work. Unless, those economists aren't necessarily tech savvy and they're kind of behind the times, but still, I think you should have been able to see it. Okay, like I think it's almost insulting that libertarians thought that on the long term that Ethereum was going to do something. Maybe what a lot of libertarians I shouldn't say libertarians, okay, because I know there's a lot of libertarians that actually did recognize that Ethereum is bullshit. There's plenty of them. I know, I've seen them at PorcFest. I hung out with them. Okay, and they know that Ethereum's nonsense, and that they know like that a lot of these altcoins, not all, but a lot of these altcoins are fucking nonsense. Okay, but like if you're going to claim that you have knowledge of economics and you thought Ethereum was like actually going to take off and hold value based upon what was going on with the ERC-20 boon alone, wow. I mean, I don't know. I was told that Hayek predicted Bitcoin. That's what I was told. I think that's ridiculous, but I was told that. I don't know. Do you guys got to go back to your books? So granted, for as long as I've been trashing Ethereum, obviously the ERC-20 tokens and doing token sales on top of Ethereum wasn't even like really a thing. So that's a newer reason to be very skeptical of it. So the biggest one for me that I'm going to lay out there, and this is number one. Okay, we listed off a few. We talked about speed. We talked about high transaction costs in comparison to what people are trying to do with it, right? Compared to actually just using a simple server structure and so on. The number one problem with Ethereum comes from the smart contract system. And you got to be careful when you're talking about smart contracts, okay? Because I can talk about them in two ways. Smart contracts is really just an on-off switch, all right? But what people also want to do is that they want to put literal contracts, as in like land deeds and a lot of these other things, onto Ethereum. Okay, they want to put these things onto Ethereum and have Ethereum enforce these kinds of contracts. Okay, now that uses the smart contract system, but doesn't exactly mean that they're smart contracts. But here, I have an overall problem with contracts, and the problem with contracts is enforcement. How is Ethereum going to enforce, say, the land deed or the car registration that you put up into Ethereum? How is it going to enforce that? Do you need governments or something? Do you need police? That if somebody decides to not accept Ethereum, that they'll use... what? Like, how is that going to happen? So, like, if I disagree with Ethereum, if I don't agree with the contracts, say, put up into Ethereum and that are controlled by Ethereum, like if I wanted to buy a car from you, I'd give you, I don't know, such and so 2 ETH or something, and then the smart contract would switch that car over to my ownership, right? That's the idea. Okay, who's going to enforce that? Like, do you put a kill switch in a car? Oh, because that's wow, what a great idea. I'm being sarcastic. That's not a great idea to do that, okay? Because that leads into the second problem, right? Is that if you put control of your property and all of that, and you rely upon what you own being registered, say, within Ethereum, okay, within the Ethereum blockchain. Let's talk about the DAO, shall we? Where you ended up, this was kind of Ethereum's first initial fork, right? Where you ended up with Ethereum Classic because someone walks away with $30 million because they used the smart contract totally within the parameters of the smart contract itself. It wasn't really a theft because he played by the rules of the smart contract to get that $30 million in ETH, right? How did the Ethereum development team react to that? They rewrote history. They said, we're going to pretend that never happened. Well, who gets to fucking decide that shit? Who gets to say what is legitimate on Ethereum and what's not? I thought the code itself was the only thing that can do that. Oh, but humans write the code. Oh, but humans can change the code. Fuck no. So again, you have the problem of enforcement body. How the hell are you going to enforce these kinds of things? But then if you rely upon, well, we'll just enforce it. We don't need any violence. We don't need anybody with a gun. We'll just say that my Toyota, the Ethereum blockchain says that I own that Toyota, or that I just bought that Toyota off that guy. Well, what if the Ethereum blockchain gets rolled back to where you never owned that Toyota, and then you go in there and you put your thumbprint down or something, or you inject your DNA into it to prove that it's yours because your DNA is on the Ethereum blockchain. Nothing creepy about that. I'm not saying they've done that yet. Okay, but you put that down and you hop into your car. You hop into your car and wait a minute, it says it's not mine. Well, they did a rollback on the Ethereum blockchain. Sorry, there was this whole theft, and you were part of it, and you don't actually own it. Do you not see these problems? And I mean, they're not crazy. Okay, these aren't like wild speculations. This isn't Black Mirror. This is already entirely possible because you already had fucking Toyota talking about baking in blockchain and even Ethereum and so on. I mean, this is a very real thing. And you say, well, it's open source and we can fork it. Okay, can you? Or is there some kind of penalty when you walk away from that? Because that gets down to the enforcement. I mean, hell, you even had Vitalik, and people want to say he was joking. You had Vitalik talking about drones as in, like Terminator-style hunter-killer kind of drones being controlled by Ethereum. Oh, well, who controls Ethereum? Is that some kind of like quote-unquote ethereal thing that's just floating in the air that is, all fair and just? No, it's run by humans. How do people not see the problem with this? The fact that history can be completely rewritten and you don't actually hold on to the shit that you have and it's all getting registered into, I mean, that's a problem with enforcement and all that's a problem with contracts in general, to say nothing of smart contracts, which again, at the end of the day are just an on-off switch. Okay. But the fact that, you are, I mean, effectively the Ethereum team would become God. And it's scary. It's even scarier when you have people on forums, especially years ago, you had people on forums on the for Ethereum saying, can't we just use Ethereum to code society into better behavior? The fuck you can. Who the hell are you to tell me how I'm supposed to live? You're not going to code my existence. And this is a classic term that I use called tyranny of the code. I said that. I started that. I was at the fucking first Ethereum conference and I called it out. So you're creating the tyranny of the code. Fuck the tyranny of the gun. Won't even need it. Tyranny of the code. But hey, Ethereum's great. What am I going to do? Right? Yeah, rah, Ethereum. Woo! We love Ethereum. Yeah. Okay. You have a good time with that because I don't. Because here's the best part. I'm gonna love saying this. And you can, anyone else wants to start saying this for shit, you go right ahead. You love Ethereum. You're putting your whole life, everything onto Ethereum. You're putting your business on Ethereum. You're baking everything off of Ethereum. Or you're going to you might even do a fork of Ethereum. You might go with Ethereum Classic, or you might make your own. How about that? Well, let the Golden Stallion tell you how this goes. I don't accept your blockchain. What are you going to do now? Are you going to shoot me? Are you going to, what's going to happen now that I don't accept your blockchain? Oh shit, your entire reality has just been crushed. This is the mentality you people have. Just as, I wanted to end it with that, but look, I'm just going to say, just to kind of bring it back a little bit to reality here. It's completely valid for somebody to say to you, and you could say that they're stupid, and fine, you can have your opinion on the matter, not your fact, your opinion. You can say to a person, hey, I'd like to buy that off of you. Do you accept Bitcoin? If they say no, what are you going to do? That they won't accept Bitcoin. What are you going to do about that? Nothing. You're either going to give them money that they do accept, or you're just not going to get what you want. But you have to live with that because that's the nature of human transactions of the market process. At the end of the day, you say, well, it comes down to property. Well, property comes down to the respect principle. You're going to have to respect the person's choice. I don't recognize your blockchain. Have a good day.
From Big Finish Productions, Blake 7, The Classic Audio Adventures.
I'm taking Liberator in on manual. We'll be in teleport range in 2 minutes.
What the hell was that?
Information. Liberator has been attacked.
You don't say.
Put up the force wall.
Confirm.
Message to all ground commanders. Initiate the final phase. Let's crush these rebels once and for all.
My name is Avon. Kerr Avon.
Kerr Avon.
Our hostage arrives. but you may be unnecessary.
As a hostage, it's nice to be superfluous.
You can go to Blake7.com to find more of the new adventures of one of science fiction's greatest masterpieces, Blake 7, at Blake7.com.
Important messages.
It is time for Important Messages, where I get emails in and messages from Sovereign Tech listeners, and I cover your questions. And we got a nice one this week. This is a good one. We're going to cool off a little bit. But I appreciate the question that was sent in about, and maybe I should have read the entire question, but I love the question of, could you explain your problem with Ethereum? Well, I'm happy to, and I know that person wasn't necessarily making any claims, or, and I know they completely respect my opinion. So anyway, let's, I love that question. Feel free. You want to ask me about blockchain stuff, you can ask me. But as I've said in years past, don't come to me with like some little oddball blockchain project that's going on, because I'm not going to give you free marketing for it. So, all right, let's get into our question of the week. This is a good one. Hey, Brian, I'd like to hear why you say don't use Authy. I choose it over Google Authenticator. If you have a recommendation for another authenticator app in case you convince me to quit Authy, which you might, and if you have a recommendation for another authenticator app in case you convince me to quit Authy, which you might. Thanks. Sovereign Tech is fucking awesome as ever. Woo! Thank you. So my problem with Authy is the cloud-based storage. Now, there was an exploit, I want to say 2-3 years ago. It's tough to keep track of all this shit. I've been doing this for so long. There was an exploit that potentially led to people getting access to your Authy, your authenticator tokens, your OTP tokens. And that, that's because of the fact that they were in the cloud. Normally with an authenticator app like Google Authenticator, it's just stored on your device and that's it. It doesn't go anywhere else. As to where with Authy, I get the advantage, and I used Authy for a while too, especially since like way back in the blockchain space, like Coinbase was like recommending Authy and so on. And at the time, Coinbase wasn't seen as so much as the grand evil. But in any case, I used Authy for a while too, because it was really handy when you're testing out, like I used to test out all these different phones. When you're switching between phones, you just log into your Authy account and boom, there's all your OTP, there's all your pins. And that's super handy, and I really understand that, why people want to use it. But the fact that they're stored in the cloud and that anybody could get your credentials effectively, even though there's ways to kind of lock that down, but the fact that anybody could get your one-time pins if they have it on their device and they have your login credentials is inherently insecure. Like the password, the username and password system is dying, thankfully, and even the tech giants are getting behind its death, and I'm really excited about that. We have great technologies like Steve Gibson's Squirrel and other things from the FIDO Alliance and so on that are becoming a really big deal to replace all this, to replace the username and login system. That can't happen fast enough. But yeah, that's the problem with Authy, is that it's cloud stored. And so it's effectively, and at one point it even was, there was the potential that you could have, your accounts, even though they were 2FA, even though they had second factor authentication on your accounts, someone could have gotten access to them because of the fact that Authy is remotely, your Authy pins are remotely stored. Authy might have changed the way that they go about that. I mean, they fixed the exploit previously, but they might have changed how they do business as far as that goes. I will give you recommendations of how to do it otherwise. And I'll give you like 3. All right. Now you can use Google Authenticator is totally open source. Yeah, it has the Google branding on it, so I usually try to steer clear of that. But I think Google Authenticator is perfectly harmless, personally. And the code's been checked out. There is LastPass Authenticator, which if you're already using LastPass, you might want to go ahead. I mean, you're already trusting them with one thing, with one set of keys to your kingdom. Maybe you want to trust them with another. That's a fine one. The Microsoft Authenticator is actually so it's not open source, and that's partly because if you have a Microsoft account, basically if you don't have a Microsoft account, don't use Microsoft Authenticator. But if you have a Microsoft account, Microsoft Authenticator is pretty handy because it gives you that one-click approve feature where you can approve a login without having to put in a one-time PIN, which is a really, really like easy and as far as like how Microsoft secures their shit, it's about as secure as it can get with them. So that's a fine thing to do, and it works well with all the other one-time PIN calls. And like I think it works on like the Apple Watch if you're into that sort of thing, which I think is an important ability to have if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you still have a Microsoft account. Yeah, so Microsoft Authenticator is an interesting one. Again, not open source. So far, the ones I've listed off, Google Authenticator is still the best option here. But the real now, if you use F-Droid, okay, there's an authenticator app just called Authenticator that is based off of Google, but they just stripped the Google shit from it, and it works very well. That's a great option as well. The real winner here that I want people to go with, I mentioned the FIDO Alliance, okay, which of course they're kind of behind. A lot like universal second factor, instead of 2FA, U2F, okay, like YubiKeys, right, from Yubico. Now, Yubico they have their own authenticator app that you can download. And here's the beauty of this, because this will let you do what Authy does, but without having to store it in the cloud. You still have control of it. So if you use the Yubico Authenticator, and you can have that on desktop, which is also a major advantage. I know that's a big advantage for Authy as well, is because, right, like there was the Chrome app for it or whatever, and you could get access to it on your desktop without having to pull out your phone to get your OTP codes. If you use YubiKeys, if you use a YubiKey, if you get like the YubiKey Nano or the YubiKey 4, and I think the Nano is the one that has NFC on it. That's the one that I have. And that's a completely open source key as to where the YubiKey 4 is not. But you can use NFC if your phone has NFC. And actually, I think it can work through the MTP port at the bottom where it can plug in just with the USB if you have the right adapter for that. So you don't even need to have USB really. But effectively, you can install the Yubico Authenticator app from the Google Play Store. And then you just, be an NFC or right into the USB through an adapter. You can plug in your YubiKey, and then the Yubico Authenticator it'll ask you for your password to get access to your private keys, and then it will bring up boom, 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 boom. It'll bring up all of your one-time PINs on whatever device you have Yubico Authenticator installed on, but none of those credentials are being stored on the device, on the phone or the computer. It's all on the YubiKey. Okay, so you're not storing it in the cloud, but it gives you that cross-device capability, and it's a totally fine OTP client. So that is really the way that I would go. I'd get a YubiKey and go through Yubico's solution, because I think that that's very, very well done, and that solves the problem of, okay, yeah, but if like I keep switching phones and if I keep switching computers, like Authy's so easy, so is Yubico, and it's actually like it's almost like 3FA, right? Like it's third factor authentication in a very real sense, because not only would they have to get your one-time PINs, they can't even get your one-time PINs unless they have the, your YubiKey, and of course everybody instantly says, but what if I lose my YubiKey? That's why you make two of them. Okay. And you put one of them in a safe or whatever you do. In fact, Google, their Titan key, which isn't necessarily anything special. Okay. Their Titan key, they sell you two of them. That's why it's $50 instead of like the $20 that a YubiKey can cost, because they sell you two of them, because one of them is meant for a backup because they think you might lose them. They know the solution. Okay, have two of them. So there you go. Yeah, that's the route that I would go, is just get even more secure with it, instead of where really I think Authy is taking away security from 2FA. Doing the YubiKey route is actually adding on more security, which, how can you go wrong? So anyway, that's it for our question. Great question to ask about that, because, that's one of those ones that you got to really check in on like once a year or so. So thank you for that. We'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Hey, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this is a great fucking show. And you know what? I agree with you. And I'm not just saying it because I'm the host. But I am the podcast champion, baby. And let me tell you, if you want to help out the podcast champion, you want to help out the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, and you want to make Sovryn Tech an even bigger show, here's how you do it. And don't worry, it's not for free, and you get something out of it. You go to Patreon. You go to patreon.com/SovrynTech, SOVRYN Tech. Patreon.com/SovrynTech. Become a Sovryn Tech patron, and you will get access to literally thousands of hours of bonus content. There's new content every week. You get to be in the live Q&A hangouts that we do every month. You get to access to the Wednesday Q&A. Do you like that important messages segment? We do one every single week, and it goes a good hour strong, if not longer if needed, depending on how many questions there are. That's only for patrons, and all you got to do is at least $1 a month. Some do significantly more, and I'm honored by that. But become a patron, support the show, help it grow. Patreon.com/SovrynTech. And I thank you to all the patrons already out there and all the ones to come. Patreon.com/SovrynTech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
It is time for HackSec, where we talk issues of hacking and security and privacy. You know, that's kind of baked into the whole idea of security, right? I think they're kissing cousins. In fact, I'd argue you can't really have security without privacy. And actually, it sounds like the head of Google thinks the same thing. We'll talk about that in just 1 second. I want to bring something up because as I'm recording this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, somebody's going to say, well, because humans can code blockchain, or because humans code blockchains, that means that, well, aren't you making, if you're making a case against Ethereum, aren't you making a case against Bitcoin, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. No, not really, for a couple of reasons. One of them is that in Ethereum particularly, over the years, there has been this strange cult reverence for the development team there, as to where it's not so much the case with Bitcoin, where there is that kind of that cult. I mean, people are obviously hyper passionate and for very good reason, you know, myself included, you know, to be excited about Bitcoin. I mean, I fucking love Bitcoin. Okay. But there's a weird cult aspect, you know, to Ethereum that is very different, where like in Bitcoin, if somebody proposed a rollback, well, the community is not going to let that fly. I mean, I pretty much guarantee. And also, like, there isn't even a reason necessarily for Bitcoin to do that kind of rollback because of its limited feature set, which I argue is actually a good thing. It's a security feature, as to where with Ethereum, it's not, you know, the fact that it can do anything makes it inherently insecure by design. Okay, but then there's also kind of that cult worship around the dev team. Yeah, I don't like it. So before anybody says I just made a case against every altcoin, no, I did not. Ethereum is very unique in how its in those senses that I just described. So, okay, that is not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about another founder here, okay, and that is Google's Larry Page. Whew. This is from this story's from Business Insider, and you might be wondering, why is this in HackSec? I'll explain why. Here's the headline. Google's introverted co-founder has mysteriously disappeared from public life and is reportedly spending more time on his private Caribbean island. This is from September 13th, 2018, reading on here. Larry Page has faded from public life. With other founders of major tech companies, such as Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and Jack Dorsey of Twitter, have recently been compelled to step into the spotlight, Page is withdrawing more and more from public life to spend time on his private Caribbean island, Bloomberg reports. Page founded Google with Sergey Brin in 1998. Both are senior executives at Google's parent company, Alphabet, where Page still holds company all-hands meetings, according to Bloomberg. Stallion breaking in for a second. I think the whole purpose behind creating Alphabet, there's two reasons why Alphabet was created. We talked about this when it happened years ago. One is so that people on a long enough timeline, this is the nefarious part, on a long enough timeline, people won't see all of these things that Google is really doing, because it's real. Alphabet is still really just Google, even though you can say, well, YouTube split off and this split off. No, they're all the same company. Okay. So that way people don't get into like antitrust thoughts and think, wow, like all of these services are interconnected, because eventually there'll be so many companies under Alphabet that you don't know that they're attached to Google, but they are, and your data set is being used by all of them. And that should creep you the fuck out, but whatever. Anyway, for some reason it hasn't creeped anybody out. So some of you listening, maybe it did, but regardless. So there's that. The other reason is that really I think Larry Page created Alphabet because he wanted to make his own Silicon Valley, where his own little companies can effectively play off of each other, and he can act like he's God, you know, of the tech world within his own little tech world, which I'm not saying that that's a crazy notion to do. Hell, I might have pulled that off. I like to think I live in my own fantasy world, actually, with Sovryn Tech. But that's why I think he did that. Anyway, let's read on with the story. Bloomberg notes that in the 1990s, Page was found to have vocal cord paralysis. He opened up about the condition in 2013. He said it made his voice softer and made long monologues more difficult. The 45-year-old Google co-founder has not spoken in public since a TED Talk in 2014, despite Google's recently coming under attack from President Donald Trump, who has accused it of left-wing bias and antitrust violations. Those are whole other stories to get into, along with, we're not even talking about, Google working with the Chinese government. I mean, it's really atrocious with this company. That part about the China thing is pretty atrocious, along with the military things that we've talked about in recent months, the military contracts. It's crazy. Regardless, so now, yeah, this is true that Larry Page actually has a hard time talking. Last time I saw him was actually at the 2013 Google I/O, and he did that really creepy kind of talk where the earth was behind him spinning and everything. And yeah, but he could barely talk through that. So anyway, let's read on. Google's leadership was strikingly absent from a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing last week where Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and Facebook's Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg gave evidence. An empty chair was theoretically left for Google after Page and Google CEO Sundar Pichai declined to attend. Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia tore into Google's leadership for failing to turn up. Quote, given its size and influence, I would have thought the leadership at Google would want to demonstrate how seriously it takes these challenges and to lead this important public discussion, end quote, he said. Stanley, breaking in for a second here. Stop. Okay, if Google's working with the military, they're playing ball with the government. Don't pretend. Don't let these politicians make you think that, wow, boy, Google's being really, we got to do something about Google. Blah, blah. Stop. They're all working together. It's corporatism. Reading on. Bloomberg spoke with the early Google investor turned critic Roger McNamee about Page being a no-show. Quote, Google has been incredibly lucky to date that Facebook's failures have been so much more in focus, but they're every bit as bad. By not showing up, it did Facebook a huge favor. If you're a shareholder, you should be furious. They guaranteed the intensity will go way up, end quote. Being absent from public life doesn't mean Page is withdrawn from the world of tech entirely. According to Bloomberg, Page has stopped taking an interest in corporate dealings at Google in favor of futuristic projects that capture his interest. For example, Page has made major investments in flying car companies like Kitty Hawk and Blackfly. Plage. Yeah, Larry Page, Plage. Let's just call him Plage or Plague. How about we call him Plague? I think that'd be perfect. This last paragraph is really what it's all about. Okay. Page has always guarded his privacy, but a withdrawal from public life may draw the ire of some now that Google is coming under the microscope along with social media companies. Page has always guarded his privacy. Okay, so Sovereign Tech listeners, or new to Sovereign Tech listeners, let me ask you this. Do you think that Larry Page, even though he's not spending so much time in the day-to-day at Google, do you think he would appreciate if you guarded your privacy as much as he is by even running off to some private island and maybe not even doing Google searches? Like, this is the part that kills me with this shit, okay? These guys in Silicon Valley are so hard up, like, oh, no, yeah, I'm going to put, like, what did we talk about? This is years ago. Remember Mark Zuckerberg shared that picture on Instagram when, I don't know, how there was some milestone that they hit, and we saw his MacBook, and his MacBook had tape over the camera, had tape over the USB ports on it, and, like, he was using Thunderbird, and it looked pretty clear that, he really had this whole thing, like, tricked out for privacy and everything. If you did that, if you engaged in the levels of privacy that we promote on Sovereign Tech, and that these asshats like Larry Page, okay, put into their own life, these companies would tank because they make all of their money off of your data. But, they get to live that way. But us? If we want to do that, what does Facebook say? Content collapse. Holy shit, we're screwed. We got to do something. We got to figure out a way to get people hooked back onto our products because we're going to lose all of our investors. Or Google, what the hell is Google going to do? If you actually gave a shit about your privacy, they couldn't serve you ads. They'd be fucked. This is the irony. This is what's so goddamn funny. So Larry Page wants to go away from public life, but if you wanted to get away from public life, no, please come back. We need to suck you dry of everything that you're doing. Tell us everything. Post it all on Google Plus, like you do that. Like, use Gmail and all this. No privacy for you. And in fact, we've talked about so many times how at every Google event now, all of the new technologies that they show off to you, like the Google Home, as it were. And I don't mean the little cylindrical speaker, but that's part of it. But I mean literally the home that is powered by Google that they are trying to sell you. we have said that for everything that they show you that technology doing, for it to really work, for those suggestions to really work towards you, for your home to really be automated and do for you what you want to do without you asking for it, this shit has to be infinitely pervasive. It has to be everywhere. Google has to be in every home. Google has to be in every part of your life. They have to have every bit of data about you. Do you think that Larry Page is going to buy into that? Fuck no. He's going off to his fucking private island in the Caribbean. And do you think he's talking to some speaker there? The hell he is. He's probably got some secretary ready to do who knows what to him. Okay, that's always there ready to do. I mean, stop. Don't listen to what Silicon Valley is selling you. Listen to how these guys, how these CEOs and whoever else, how they live. And you tell me what you should be doing in life. You think they're smart guys? They're bringing all these incredible things into the world. How come they're not using them? Ask yourself that. Why is Larry Page disappearing from public life? You know what? Look, I'm actually not insulting the guy in that way. Yeah, absolutely. Run off to your private island. Don't tell anybody what you're doing, and hide, encrypt all your shit, whatever. Awesome. But let's all do that. I mean, we can't all go to our private islands, but you get my point. Let's all drop out of public life. For fuck's sake. Let's take Larry Page's cue. I mean, they do this like they're insulting him. No, he's doing it right. He's getting the hell out of all this crap. And he's not going to post shit. And he's not going to show up to be on TV or anything. Let's get that out of our heads that we want to be on TV. That's the thing. That's why this is a part of HackSec. Because here's a guy who gives, obviously, a very deep care about his privacy and always has, but then his entire business model relies upon you not doing so. So wait, who's doing it right? I'd argue Larry Page is. Get the hell away from this shit. Get the hell away from these services. You want to do things the Google way? Well, do it the Google way. Run the fuck away from public life in general. Stop posting shit. Stop, being out there so much for all that crap, and just hide and encrypt your shit. Okay? Do it the Google way. That's the Google way. Larry Page is the Google way. Or what should be the Google way. Anyway, you get my point. Whew. I mean, just it's so ironic. Pay attention to how these guys are living. Okay? And they're not living that way because they have a ton of money. I mean, yes, that's why he has a private island, but they're doing this because they know that being in the public spotlight or giving over their data is opening them up to all kinds of attacks. Obviously, that's what's going on. It's true for Larry Page, and it's true for you. Learn from it. Woo! I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech.
The most incredible television event ever as you join the crew of Battlestar Galactica.
Right here, you creepy crawly. I have led the entire human race to ruin.
The last of mankind, fighting for life in a hostile galaxy.
Most of us are dead.
Alone, with only one hope, Battlestar Galactica and her crew.
There is no other destination.
Commander Adama, Captain Apollo, the intrepid Starbuck, and the dazzling Athena, searching for a new and peaceful world.
May as well live for today. We might not have many left.
Let the attack begin. A new age of high adventure, Battlestar Galactica.
Game Talk.
It is time for Game Talk, where I get to cool down. Though I got to admit, I got pretty excited this week for a lot. I mean, there was so much gaming news that came out. Some of it was genuinely sexy. I mean, like genuinely sexy. In fact, I want to talk about an event in the tech world that was way more interesting than anything Apple could have dreamed of doing. And that's, of course, the company I think that actually does give a shit. And, yeah, I know they're ugly about the IP, but they're a company that does care about making customers actually happy. That being Nintendo, their Nintendo Direct that was postponed, and it ended up happening on September 13th. It was pretty awesome. Holy shit. And I want to talk about that. But I do have a little bit of a story I want to get into here first. This is... So let's see, from PC Gamer, and the story is actually just from a few days ago. Steam's first uncensored adult game has been approved. With the new sexual content filters in place, Steam's new policies have apparently taken effect. So let me read a little bit of the story here, and then we're going to talk about what went on with Nintendo. Back in June, Valve announced that it was no longer going to police what could and couldn't appear on Steam, removing games only if they were illegal or quote-unquote straight-up trolling. This, we speculated, meant that Valve would be ending its rule disallowing pornography, and that appears to be the case. After adding new filtering tools which allow users to opt into seeing, quote, nudity or sexual content, end quote, and, quote, adult-only sexual content, end quote, on the Steam store, those are two separate categories, Valve has approved negligee love stories. Okay, Stanley breaking in, that's the title of the game. Negligee Love Stories for release this Friday, a game which was previously held up while those tools were being developed. Quote, I am happy to confirm Negligee Love Stories has completed the Steam review process and will be our very first 100% uncensored game on Steam. No patch needed, end quote, writes the developer. So anyway, we don't need to read further on that. Negligee Love Stories came out on Friday. I guess, is that the 16th? Yeah, or the 14th, right? Yeah, it came out on the 14th. I bought it. I bought it right away. And I bought it really, these aren't exactly my kind of games. I'm going to play it, and I might do a review on Sovryn Tech in the future, or maybe for Sovryn Tech patrons. It's not exactly my kind of game because it's more of a visual novel style of game. I mean, I like those, but it's not my first thing I'm going to pick up and play. But I bought it as a symbolic gesture. Okay, I bought it as, it was a way of the market speaking, saying, I want more of this. Okay, like my own video games that I developed, Hyperchronius and Ninja Track, especially Hyperchronius. There's threesomes in that, there's orgies, there's all kinds of shit. Like I was never able to put them on Steam because of this, because they didn't allow that kind of content, and now they do, and I think that that's great. And we talked about it back in June when they first announced this, and the potential concerns where Valve could really be. They could just kind of be eeny, meeny, miny, mo about what they're going to allow on the service. But I think that this is a great and wonderful thing. I think this is actually a huge event for gaming in general, considering how many people use the Steam platform. I think this is a huge deal. I mean, these kinds of games have been around for a while. Okay. They're not necessarily anything new, but for them to be available to a wider audience, I think it's just downright fucking wonderful. And I am so proud of it. And like I said, that's why I bought the game on release day. And I knew I was going to buy the game on release day. So I want to be all over this. And I want to support it. And I want people to know that this kind of content is wanted. I hope the game sold gangbusters. Even if it's people that didn't want to play it, that they just bought it so that it could tell Steam, thank you for fucking, letting us have actual adult goddamn games, because we're adults and sex can be as much a part of a video game as anything else. I mean, to say nothing of Witcher 3 and so on, but yeah, you do have to go into your store settings and you have to activate to see the content. Like it's off by default, which I don't have a problem with that. Because the average person that's going to install Steam probably doesn't want to see this sort of stuff. I understand that. But you do have to turn it on to see the adult content. So, if you want to get your hands on this, you're going to want to do that. But great. I think this is a huge deal, Now, a company that has been notorious for not allowing anything remotely adult, even though at times they would, Conker's Bad Fur Day and so on. Nintendo, they had their Nintendo Direct event, and holy shit, was this. I mean, this was just, sticks of dynamite getting dropped in the gaming industry. Of course, the Nintendo Switch, we talked about it last week during GameTalk, is really a phenomenon, a rare phenomenon in the gaming industry, where a device seems to just become so much a part of your life. And you almost live for the device, right? Kind of like how people treat iPhones. They live for their iPhone. A lot of humans walk around pretty much, they're not really human. They're iPhone carriers. That's what we should call them. And a lot of people, and I'm kind of kidding about that. It feels like, when you have people that say, if you pull out anything other than an iPhone, they won't have sex with you. I think that's, and those people are absolutely real. I think that's outrageous. But whatever. Anyway, so, yeah, the Nintendo Switch has just become an absolute phenomenon. And there are so many wild things that they announced coming out for it, but not just at the Nintendo Direct, which they hold these pretty infrequently. They'll have them whenever they want them. They had to delay this one because of an earthquake. But, they'll make all these big announcements and everything, and they made plenty. We're getting a new Animal Crossing game for the Switch. There's going to be Luigi's Mansion 3 coming out for the Switch, which is really exciting for me. Of course, the original Luigi's Mansion for what I consider one of the greatest game systems of all time, of course, the Nintendo GameCube, originally came out for that. They're going to be doing a re-release in October for the 3DS, which I think is really cool. And they even showed off some of that at the Nintendo Direct. That was exciting in itself, was the amount of content announced. Even if some of it was remakes, that's fine. But the premium content premium games getting released for the 3DS still, because I still love that system to death. In fact, this is so exciting for me. This was for me, there's two big announcements. The first one was Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. Now, Kirby's Epic Yarn is the cutest fucking game you're ever going to play in your life. I'm a huge fan of Kirby. In fact, I have a Kirby stuffed animal right behind me here in the studio. They're going to re-release the Wii game Kirby's Epic Yarn for the 3DS in 2019. I am all over that. I'll pre-order it as soon as it comes up. This is such a fun game where Kirby's literally yarn, and you're playing in like this yarn-style world. Just wild. There was a Yoshi's game very similar to it that they also announced a new version of that, or a new entry in that for the Switch, which is really cool. Kirby's Epic Yarn, that's going to be great. There's, I think, Bowser's Story is getting re-released for the 3DS. Lots of announcements for the 3DS, which I think is really exciting. So yeah, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, where they're going to put in extra content and all that. Can't wait for that. But the other really major announcement that I liked was they talked a lot about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is coming out for the Switch. And I had said in the past on Sovryn Tech that when Super Smash Bros. Comes out for the Switch, I will buy the Switch then. Like, that's when I'll get on it. And they happened to announce, I think November 4th or November 2nd. Oh, no, November 2nd. They announced that at the Nintendo Direct that they are going to release a Super Smash Bros. Edition of the Nintendo Switch on November 2nd. I would like to get my hands on that. I'm not saying I can afford that right now, but I would like to get my hands on that very badly. So there's my impetus to finally jump on board with the Switch. But lots of other exciting stuff was getting announced there. And then, of course, there's a lot of news around the Nintendo the Nintendo Switch Online service, which people had a lot of questions about and had been delayed over and over again. This is pretty cool. So initially, there's going to be 20, I think, NES games released. And in fact, they're even selling NES-style Joy-Cons, which are the controllers for the Switch. They're going to sell you like official NES, and Nintendo's going to sell official NES-styled Joy-Cons. Now, I think the Joy-Cons actually only work for the NES games on the online Switch service. So that's something to consider, okay? I'm sure someone will find a hack around that, but that's something to consider. You don't have to play the NES games online. They can work for 7 days without an internet connection. Like say you have internet connections are kind of spotty or something. As long as you get connected every 7 days, you can keep playing these games offline. So there's interesting restrictions around that. Of course, I don't agree with them, but whatever, I get it. This is their answer to a virtual console, really. And the online service is going to cost, I think for a family, it's like $40 a month, but for a single user, or not a month, I'm sorry, a year. For a single user, it's $20 a year, and then there's like monthly payments within. People are flipping out about this. $20 a year? I mean, that seems cheap for what you're getting. Like, I think that's a totally valid price to put out there, and it's going to allow for cloud saves. Now, they said later that the cloud saves, if you stop paying for the yearly service, you lose all of your cloud saves. That kind of sucks, but I mean, with the Switch, you're kind of going to go for that. I mean, this is why I still love the 3DS, because it can be a totally offline, console or handheld console. But I get it what the Switch is doing, and I don't think that that's a crazy price. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything nuts about it. I think it looks like a very exciting service with the multiplayer and everything that's going to be possible. Just so many exciting things happening that they announced at the Nintendo Direct. A lot of really cool games. There's the new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Oh, man, there's so much. Really exciting shit. We'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Hey, you heard about it at the top of the show. I have a whole new book out. Well, not whole new. If you signed up for the Sovryn Tech newsletter at zog.email, again, that's zog.email, you would have read some of these stories in an earlier form. But this is the Sovryn Universe. You love the fictional aspects of Sovryn Tech, baby. This is your book, Sovryn Universe, Volume 1. You can find it on Amazon, and it's going to be in all other places very soon. But for right now, if you want to get on your Kindle, get the ebook version, you get it on Amazon. You just type in Sovryn Universe, or there's a link in the show notes for this episode episode, and you can get your hands on it. It's only $2.99. It's a bunch of short stories, some of which are exclusive to this book. They will only ever come out for this book. They will never come out on Patreon. They will never come out in the Sovryn Tech newsletter. They will only be in this book. And boy, can I tell you, the ladies love these stories, okay? A pure hotness. You know, I do erotic science fiction like no other. You want to get on this Sovryn Universe. You can go to zog.email to find the link for the book. You can go to Amazon and just type in Sovryn Universe, Sovryn, or you can find the link in the show notes. Check it out. Thank you in advance. Woo! Let's get back to the show. Go get it. Go get the book. Sovryn Universe, Volume 1. It's fucking awesome.
Wild card.
Yeah, you know, I'm probably going to get mad again, but I'm telling you, yeah, I'm ready for the Switch, for the Nintendo Switch. I am ready now after that Nintendo Direct. That was fucking amazing. So, okay, I'm going to skip the climax this week. And originally for the climax, it was actually going to be about a video game again, but we just talked about video games so much, maybe it doesn't matter, because I wanted to celebrate 25 years of Mortal Kombat, or well, really like September 13th, which was just this past Thursday, was 25 years ago, was Mortal Monday, when they released Mortal Kombat on the Genesis, on the Sega Genesis, and on the Super Nintendo. It had already been in arcades for about a year, but this is when Mortal Kombat really took over the world, was when they got their home console releases. So it's a date that I always remember, Mortal Monday, and man, was that huge. And I could talk about Mortal Kombat. I could talk that for a whole episode if you wanted, and I know no one does. But anyway, so I was going to do that for the climax, but I made my mention here, and maybe I could talk about Mortal Kombat another time in the future. So, but what I do want to talk about is something pretty crazy, not surprising, but I don't know that people really recognize this, and I want to drive this point home. A lot of this episode this week has been about your relationship with your technology and your relationship with these tech giants. And this is a story coming from Lifehacker, and it's from just this past Wednesday. You don't own the music, movies, or ebooks you, quote-unquote, buy on Amazon or iTunes. So let's read the story here. When you purchase music, movies, or books from Amazon or Apple's iTunes store, you might be under the impression that the material is yours to enjoy forever. That's how CDs and paper books work, after all. Why rent You've Got Mail for $3.99 every few months when you can own it and watch it whenever, forever, for $9.99? But you'd be mistaken. Anything digital is temporary, even if you clicked purchase rather than rent. One unfortunate side effect of what you that you won't experience with a physical, one unfortunate side effect of that you won't experience, the way they wrote it was funny, you won't experience with a physical book or record. Your purchases may just disappear if licensing agreements change. So there is a tweet that went out by a guy named Anders G. De Silva, and you can find it within the story here. And effectively what happened to Anders is that he bought 3 movies, and those 3 movies disappeared he bought them from iTunes, from Apple, and he didn't rent them, he bought them. He clicked purchase, not rent. And those 3 movies were taken away. And they were given, he was given, as a, like, oh, so sorry about that. He was given 2 movie rentals that he could use, not purchases, 2 movie rentals for iTunes. And Apple just wrote him back, said, sorry, like a licensing thing changed. And the document is actually, or, the response that he got is actually in the story here. But, it's like, sorry, we lost the licensing deal, so those movies can't be on the iTunes platform anyway. And that doesn't just mean we can't sell them to you anymore. That means you can't have them anymore. And they just took them away. Let's read on. You can see where the story's going. As outlined in the Twitter thread that Anders did there, Apple states the content provider of the movies in question removed them from the store, and that removed them from the user's library, even though he had paid money to buy them. It's easy to see why that's frustrating, especially since Apple wasn't willing to cough up a refund for the purchases he no longer has. Quote, this wouldn't happen in the physical world. No one comes to your door and demands that you give back a book, end quote. Aaron Perzanowski, a Case Western Reserve University law professor who studied these digital purchases, told the LA Times in 2016. Quote, but in the digital world, they can just go into your Kindle and take it, end quote. It's not like the companies are hiding this fact. though the buy buttons may confuse consumers. For example, Amazon notes in the fine print that, quote, Kindle content is licensed, not sold to you by the content provider. The content provider may include additional terms for use within its Kindle content, end quote. You also can't sell or redistribute your ebooks as you might with a physical copy. Apple's fine print states that the licensor, quote, reserves the right to change, suspend, remove, disable, or impose access restrictions or limits on any external services at any time without notice or liability to you, end quote. There's no simple way to keep the content you purchase from Apple or Amazon, quote unquote, forever, though there are some shortcuts. For example, you could try converting Kindle books to PDFs. You can also download music you buy from Amazon onto your computer. The best option? If you can, buy a physical copy of a movie or a TV show that comes with a digital download. At least you'll have a backup in case your digital copy disappears, assuming you still have a player to watch it on. So this is for Sovryn Tech, this is kind of old news. And we've talked about this many times. In fact, there's the classic case from years ago where, of all ironies, I think it was 1984, An Animal Farm by George Orwell, were available on for your Kindle e-reader and on Kindle devices, and then Amazon, because of a licensing deal, had to take them away. They couldn't offer them anymore, and they literally ripped them away from your Kindle device. Okay? Now, this is kind of a side note. This is true for a lot of software as well, not just like digital goods like ebooks and MP3s and MP4 movies and so on. Okay, this, as a side note, Windows, for example, you don't actually, when you pay for a copy of Windows or you buy a new computer that has Windows running on it, whatever version it happens to be, you are paying a licensing fee to access the use of Windows. You are not actually buying a copy of Windows. This is one of the oldest arguments of why people recommend using Linux, is because Linux, you're not buying it, it's yours and you can do whatever the fuck you want with it, and it is yours. Okay, you don't own Ubuntu, but like the company, but you do own, the ISO that you downloaded or however you work that out. Okay, so this is a thing across the board in, shall we say, the digital world, in the tech world, okay, where a lot of this stuff, you don't really own it if there's any kind of DRM on it. And recently we talked about the whole fuck DRM movement, which I think is great, because you do have companies like GOG.com where when they sell you a game, no, you own it. As long as you download it. They might have to take it off of their servers, but if you downloaded the game, you could still, and you have a copy of it, you could still play it on your computer or whatever, okay, even though it's not available to you and you bought it, say on their servers, because I think that's happened, like with the Chronicles of Riddick game, Dark Athena. But anyway, this is a genuine issue, and Apple is just as much in the game as far as this goes. And this is another reason that I eschewed a lot of Apple stuff, because it's so handy to have this all on your iTunes platform and everything. And you can actually, Apple's kind of seesawed on this. Because with music, it used to be that you had to listen to it through an Apple product or through iTunes. And then they came out with what was iTunes Plus, which would effectively allow you to download it and you could do whatever you wanted with the MP3s and everything. And the DRM wasn't a part of it because people were that concerned about it with their music. I don't know what's going on with iTunes now because I don't look at iTunes at all, but I never got into it, and I kind of ran away from Apple because I always knew that if I bought their movies, and say you bought the Star Wars saga on there, it's $100, that could just go away. That in a heartbeat that could go away. And I don't think that's hard to believe either, because, Apple with their streaming service and Disney with their streaming service are going to be going head to head very soon. So, that's, and you're out $100. So this is a very real thing. This is something that you need to pay attention to with software. This is why people recommend using open source software. This is why you want to use, different operating systems that are also open source and so on. That way you're not falling trapped to this licensing thing. Now, with books, for example, I buy a lot of books through the Kindle store because a lot of books are only available through the Kindle store. As soon as I buy them, I go through the process, and we talked about this maybe about 5-6 weeks ago. We talked about how the new way, because there's a new format that Kindle was using that had new DRM, where you could strip it. You could strip the DRM and you could convert the book using Calibre or Calibre, whatever they call that. You could use that to convert it into an EPUB, where it's something that you can actually hold on to, and as long as you have the data file, no one can take it away from you as long as you keep copies of it, right? This is a really important thing that people need to be doing. You need to be paying attention to the fact that the the shit that these companies want to sell you, you really don't own. The services even that they offer, you don't really have control over. Okay, like Google Docs, for example. It's been long known that you can't, if something happens, if like somehow somebody uses content that you put into a Google Doc, and say you believe in intellectual property, which I don't, but if you did, you can't sue Google and you can't sue the company over it. Okay, so effectively, it's always there for Google to just kind of like use, and they're almost tacitly admitting that they will. Like anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But bottom line being, let's take control of our data again. Okay, and go through all the processes. It might be a pain in the ass. Learn how to strip DRM from this stuff. Keep local copies. We've been talking about for a long time, not just on Sovereign Tech Prime, but on Patreon episodes, in the newsletter. We've been talking about using network area storage, right? Using a NAS, having your own little server, your own little cloud. These are so anybody can set these up now. Okay, take control of your data, because it can. I mean, and I think it's almost downright criminal. The fact that, like, I mean, we're talking about art here, and it can just be taken away. Like does somebody should they be able to have control over where their art goes and everything? In a way, but in the digital realm, as much as you don't necessarily own anything, or the argument would go that you're just licensing everything that's digital content, at the same time, it also kind of makes ownership meaningless, because you can just make instant copies and nobody is at a loss. Right? There's no theft involved, because like if I copy an MP3 that you made, did you lose that MP3? No, I just happen to have a perfect copy of it. You know? So, I mean, these are the hard questions, the hard things that also I think, you know, economists, like we were talking about how they really dropped the ball on Ethereum. I think that a lot of them are completely missing the point of what the digital revolution and of digital content, what it really means. Like licensing is a way of trying to keep the old ways of economics staying alive. And, you know, that's really kind of what DRM does, as to where really the digital realm sets it all free. And I don't just mean free as in freedom. I also might be meaning free as in beer, right? Where like literally everything, you know, how can it actually cost money? So this is the tough stuff to consider, but I'm telling you, like Apple's doing it now. It's going to continue to get worse. There's going to be more cases of this happening. Get the DRM stripped from your stuff after you buy it. Take control of your data. Really, take control of your data. Keep local stores. Do not fall for this cloud shit. At least not the one that you're not controlling yourself. And now it has gotten easy enough to where you can. You can strip the DRM. You can keep your own copies of this stuff. Start making those demands. I mean, the open source movement's already won. I've been saying this for over a year. Okay, but let's start making it. Get some more win going on. Okay, we can always win more, and that's really, what I mean. These are just the warning signs of that. So I mean, am I saying like go out and buy Blu-rays? This is part of the reason that I've been buying Blu-rays as late, because again, the torrent community has really been dropping the ball on quality. Okay, like, I mean, it really, really has. I don't mind buying stuff. It's not like I'm not arguing for, you know, everything should be free. I'm not saying that. Okay, I buy shit all the time. Obviously, I buy Blu-rays, I buy books, I buy, you know, all kinds of stuff. Okay, but then as soon as I buy it, like I generally will make some kind of copy that will make sure that I keep it. Okay, reassess your relationship with how you are getting your digital content, your music, your movies, your books, whatever. Take a good hard look, because this stuff can just disappear. I mean, I suppose I can make the argument that, well, you know, most stuff that comes out today is shit anyway, so they might as well take it away from you, because it's not like you're going to watch. I mean, like, what movie that's come out recently are you really going to watch 10 times? You know, I mean, that argument I suppose could get made, but with the classics and others, I mean, look, there is content out there that we want to see over and over again, and that we get to share with new people that come into our lives and everything. Make sure that you can share it. So that is the moral of the story here, even though there's no morality. Anyway, take control of your data. That is it for this week's episode of Sovereign Tech. Of course, if you want to become a patron and support the show, patreon.com/sovereigntech. Jump on it. Get ready for September's newsletter. It's coming. All the excitement. Woo! I will see all of you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. And connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please, share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.